Okay. Well, just for a little bit more context, as we are in now what, and there's so many amazing people floating around in that map, and that we're focusing on you. And I think it is what Rick also mentioned, is that we, even if we sort of sense that there are a lot of great minds and hearts there, they don't get to shine completely. And so understanding and appreciating your story more into depth, it would be maybe a way to see the full extent of this of what there is in this group. So if I can kick off with a story, a question to you is, if you could give us a short story that comes up in your mind right now of what inspired you most and what made you most effective and passionate and engaged in your work.
Yeah, a specific time when you were inspired and effective and engaged is sort of the prompt here. Some very particular story. And it would probably help, Rob, if you give her a sense of how much time we have for each of these answers.
Yeah, it's a short thing. Anything up to 5 minutes would be fine, but it's not. We're not rigid here.
Cool. You know, I feel that you can't really. There's no way you could ask that question without me coming up with a series of interconnected events. And I have so many stories that come together. I can focus on a moment, but since I have up to 5 minutes, I might weave in some of the paths that led me to that moment. As somebody with a background in hospitality and so deeply curious about the role that a cafe could play in the flowing of a community of citizens with plants, with music, all of these other elements that make life worth living, I started to really grow a sense of how powerful that role was as someone who was just greeting people every day. And it led me to taking on a project where I investigated that in a pop-up gift economy tea house. And this put me in touch with quite a few interesting people who then, when I said, why don't we grow our own food, said, I know someone who knows permaculture. And I said, what on earth is permaculture? So I looked into it. I got involved with permaculture and took my permaculture design course in 2016, which took me to another part of New Zealand. And I was very blessed to take a course by some incredible people, the Association Earth Care Education Aotearoa. They included aspects of yoga. It was held on an ashram, so exploring the inner and outer ecologies. And we took part of a deep ecology session, and I looked more into the work that reconnects. So the first time when I thought, what is a moment that I really committed to this, was just following that course. I decided to relocate to the same part of New Zealand where the course was located and volunteer in an eco-village called Tui. I was on the floor of the house of someone whose name is also Rob, and he's also Dutch. It could be why it was triggered. And I was scraping paint off the floor because he wanted to get rid of this paint. It made the worst sound. I was on my hands and knees on this cold stone floor, like the lowest of the low, and just thinking how awesome this was, that I could be existing in an economy that I was just serving. And meanwhile, I had my earphones on and I was listening to Joanna Macy speaking at Bioneers.
Wow.
And she spoke about grief and how that open space inside of us for love. And I was just shaking in my body with how true that was. Even the grief I was feeling in my body of serving in this way, and the love that caused me to come here to live in a different kind of way with others and with the land, was a very touching moment. It blended my body with my soul, with my intellect, to be able to operate in these realms all at once. So that's a moment.
That's beautiful. Wow. It's quite intense.
I am a living battery with a very intense charge, I think.
And if we go to the moment of now, what is most alive in your work right now? I come across you in various projects and all kinds of things that you're doing. What is most alive now? What is most important, what you're doing?
Well, most alive and most important, they might not agree, but what comes up for me is collaboration and all of the difficulties in collaboration. That when I listen to people saying to accelerate a global shift in culture, how we manage our resources, how we interact with one another, and come back to the earth, whatever these aspirations are, I hear this, we need to collaborate. It's going to take all people. How do we go beyond our borders? And having dove into collaboration so much, I think understanding that collaboration is inseparable from self-work. This ability to look within and see, how do I show up when I'm interacting with others? What can I sacrifice in order to be a collaborator? How can I be in a space not holding the answer, not being an expert, and let myself learn, let myself expand my perception of what is possible? So this collaboration is fusing for me right now with how do I take care of myself? And that's very important. Taking care of myself is very important and alive for me right now, because it's been a struggle to resist a comfortable, conventional life for the purpose I feel called to.
But you sound very much like that's very much what you're into right now, right? It's you, or are there so many? You're still, that resistance is still there, or are you still now completely living in that beautiful world you're trying to create?
I'm living in the first prototype of the world that I'm trying to create, and first prototypes are very messy. I'm definitely not living in the old world anymore. That's been a few years ago that I left that one, and I'm still impressed that I can manage, that I have managed for so long in such a way without going hungry or being on the street. And it's because of generosity that I've been able to do that. So thank God for the generosity that is out there. Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. So now we're going into the future, and it's New Year's Eve of 2024, 2025, so 31st of 2024. And looking back until today, you've had an amazing impact and an amazing effect. You've been a catalyzer of the world's changes. So if you look back, what was it that made you most successful, so wildly successful in catalyzing this change?
And speak from that moment in the present, in the future, speak from the present moment, looking back to the past.
Yes, you're there at that evening. Take your time. So sink into it a little bit.
Accepting my Nobel Prize, happy to be back in Sweden.
Sure.
I was able to have this impact because as I continued in the work, my blend of unique intelligence and charisma, which built on attraction from others, was in no way challenging my integrity and my truth to spirit. I had to face many hard decisions, whether to appease my ego or follow the path that my family might have wanted for me, or go for a comfortable option. And every time I was able to tune in to my center and feel what was really right. Even when those decisions didn't seem to make sense at the time, I followed that intuition and allowed for and trusted that the universe could surprise me once again.
That's a great expression of your inner journey. Wonderful. Then, and how would that echo out into the outer world? Or how did it echo out looking back in 2024?
Okay. Well, a lot of people started to reach out to me because they noticed that I had been practicing something different for a long time. That because I confronted the necessary collapse of the Western civilization for years before it was critical mass common knowledge back in September 2019, I had had these opportunities to run into the dead ends and figure out where to focus my energy. And so as people came to me seeking for support, I was able to put them in touch with the right kind of resources or collaborators or frameworks that could take them to the next step. So each time that someone was reaching out to me, I was available. I listened to them more deeply rather than trying to solve their problems. I was able to hold space for their journey and just drop a few hints for them to find that next point.
Mm-hmm. So if you look back over that period, could you say, I mean, you had your inner journey, you had your outreach, or people reached out to you actually were some sort of coming on your path or attracted to communicate with you. What were the major tools that you applied into this amazing effect that you were having on the world?
Tools. I was very fortunate to, despite not being a programmer, I was able to understand some of the emerging digital tools and technologies and understand beyond the hype and promise of the type of problems that many of them were trying to solve for, to really look at the patterns of what was important. And so there were tools for organizing and management of resources that allowed more people to make decisions together, to collaboratively manage and own assets, to start local banks and seed banks and manage land together. So these type of digital tools were one example. Is there another kind of tool that you have in mind?
No, it's the tools that you have in mind are the tools that I would like to hear, so that's fine.
Yeah, I can't remember what they called that tool that I discovered in 2020, but it was some version of a DAO. And of course, these communication platforms, I mean, we finally transcended Kanban and took it to the living multi-dimensional Kanban. That was really great. Sociocracy as a social tool really helps, still does help, and agile management as well. Compassionate communication, one of my favorite tools.
Yes, okay, thank you.
Sure.
So, and if you look back and you imagine that Now What played a key role into this amazing effect, this amazing catalyzation effect that you had on transformation in the world, then how did that come about? How did that work?
I feel like there was a tipping point during Now What where for a long time, in fact, maybe even decades, longer than I've been alive, many open-hearted individuals have been exploring key bugs within the global system of trade and governance, and exploring alternatives to that. And then this tipping point that happened at Now What was that enough people with enough information about critical issues and how alternatives could be applied finally found each other and were brave enough to implement some of these alternate systems in various parts of the world at the same time, but yet interconnected, so that this very interesting experimentation phase, we were able to learn from multiple communities around the world applying the same patterns in different specific contexts, and then really get what is as close to best practice as is possible for a complex system, as well as, you know, just supporting each other to keep going, sometimes supporting each other financially very generously without expecting anything in return, or exploring how we can gift to each other in other ways, like with our skills, our time, our knowledge, our contacts. So that really did allow people to take that step into the unknown.
Mm-hmm. So you were saying that you were in a sort of the first prototype of the beautiful new world that you are creating, co-creating.
Co-creating.
Could you could you paint a sketch of this prototype, of this beautiful dream of a new world?
Yeah. I'm aware that I have needs to meet. I'm aware that there are choices in how I meet those needs that might not be obvious. And I'm brave enough to ask for help. People who I might not have known for very long, and yet I can read that they are another version of me. They reach out to me and I reach out to them as human beings with needs, unashamed to not have it all figured out. And because of this, because we're starting to communicate and show up very honestly with one another, we discover more of these ways that we can very quickly create prosperity just by removing our masks, removing the walls, and allowing ourselves to depend on one another in an interdependence. This world is full of animals. It smells of the most rich soil, very crumbly, dark brown matter that resembles the cosmos. It sounds like children laughing. It also, the smell is of baked sourdough. That's a direct reality for me right now, handed down for generations from elders who have been cultivating and thinking of all the ways that we can turn the surplus into a fermented process. How do you call this? Preserve. And
I can even taste your
oh yes
your new world.
Multi-senses. And I believe there's something really crucial to this, which is respecting the diversity of culture while also understanding that we are part of the same whole, the same body.
Mm-hmm.
And so while we may be making use of the digital tools and other type of tools that are available to us, we're not dependent on these. It's the social processes, it's the language that we use with one another to offer dignity to each other in basic respect, to try jamming even if we don't hit the right notes straight away, to stay with the music until it finds it and takes us.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
That's the world.
Wonderful. And if you were able to choose anything that you would need to create this new world, you just go out and you ask, well, I need this, and this is your sort of a shopping list to create a new world. What would be on it?
Shopping list, like material things?
No, it could be spiritual, could be it
Yeah,
could be social, it could be anything.
nice. Well, I just got to Berlin the night before last, and so I'm inspired to say a sauna which has a live DJ and a bookshelf of books that you can borrow. A space like this is just so beautiful. And so I would say space for connecting with each other, as well as
Space for
space
connecting
for
with each other.
exploring ourselves. So quiet meditation space.
Mhm.
Access to teachings, so that
Teachings.
a curious person can go down many rabbit holes and has the time to do that because they also have their accommodation is covered. For me, a big shopping list item that I've been I've been exploring all the grocery shops so far, is really a network of places that I can go to and exchange my gifts, and so that
Mm-hmm.
I can build a home there.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I've played with woofing. I really think that
Woofing? Sorry.
woofing, yeah, willing workers on organic farms, and there are a
Okay.
few variants
Ah,
to
yeah,
that.
yeah. I've heard it.
Um, I really like to explore collective ownership woofing, so access to
Mm-hmm.
land,
Yes.
and feeling that I have a belonging
Beautiful.
to this land.
Mm-hmm.
Mm, yeah,
And
I
and
noticed the theme. It's all space. It's about space,
it's about space.
the right kind of spaces, so that I can just
Mm-hmm.
be. But yeah, I mean, generating our energy, cleaning our water, creating new water, creating life in the soil, having pitchforks to turn our compost. Yeah, like a lot of these things are on my shopping list as well.
Mm. And if you would ask the Now What the people in the Now What community, members of it, uh, what needs would you like to ask from them? And maybe we could help you ask them and put
Mm,
it into the community to see if it would how we could support your efforts to creating your beautiful new world of which we all want to be part, I'm sure.
mm. Um, right now, I'm facing the challenge of building a future of work marketplace where people are prosumers, and it's very difficult to do that through the current legal and accounting systems. I'm very happy to play with them, so I would look for someone who could guide me and teach me how to set up systems like this that are interoperable between the old system and yet don't fall into the same trappings of bureaucracy.
Mm-hmm.
I love to have a bit of exposure as well, so that people can find me, and that we can co-learn together. So means of um, creating testimonials to give credit to who I am as a person, what I stand for, that other people
Mm-hmm.
feel confident and feel that there is enough trust in my presence to reach out to me, um, as well as interviewing me for your podcast. I love this. I love to share conversation and story with one another, particularly when it's very generative. So
Mm-hmm.
that could help me as well.
Some I lost some of my typing on the needs, so I didn't get the first two fully. Legal and technical support for a future of work.
Prosumer is a key word there,
Prosumers,
and accounting.
legal and accounting support.
Legal and accounting,
Can
I
I
feel like
translate
missing
it
a
as a sort
noun.
of
Is it a network? Is it a marketplace? Is it a
yes. It's an alternative system for tracking our accountabilities.
Yes. So if I can translate it, it would be a new type of business model with all the different business rules and all the processes that come with it, but not make it so bureaucratic as the ones that we have now. Is that a way to express it?
Well, it's a translation effort. It's about understanding enough about how the system currently operates that that a local community who exists beyond national borders could set up a business model or a sharing model with one another that that is compliant and yet not trapped by the same inefficiencies of the bureaucracy.
So example of that would be like these cryptocurrency applications, for instance, where people could swap things worldwide, anything from services and what have you, and maybe products and get something into the account. Is that? Can you be a bit more specific?
I mean, it's been difficult collaborating with different projects that are not legally registered. So Cobra Kanoa, The Garden, we put a project together and called it Beyond Us because it is beyond us, but we're not an NGO. And so registering our legal entity is very complicated. I would like to see another kind of trust system that we can serve the commons, monitor the ways that we are serving the commons, but not have to have somebody's bank account, which is unfortunately that person lives in a different country than their bank account is, and then we're raising money for a different country. And
yes,
cryptocurrency can get around some of these things, but it's not 100% compliant in all countries right now. So there are a lot of sticky things.
So it's a new kind of architecture to do these gift economy, exchange economy, non-monetary exchange of gifts somehow into a system without having all the rules that go by it in banks and national entities and taxes and what have you, right? Something like that.
Right.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, because I'm taking steps between these worlds, but I don't want to break the law, and that's kind of
I understand.
So it's helpful to have advice when I'm going to try something that I'm still operating within the boundaries that are expected of me by government officials.
Yes. It's a very interesting area, very practical.
Well, yes.
There was a second one. I got the third one was interview me for your podcast, but there was a second one about
drop a testimonial that that allows me to practice my professions of facilitation and project design and social permaculture, and that people see a sort of credibility, who I am and what I'm about and how I've helped you, because having this reflected helps me to help more people. It's the dream.
Basically,
people to offer testimonials of how you brought value to their work.
Yeah. And if people feel like it, I also am trying to get enough money to get to New Zealand to visit my family. It's a necessary time for me to get there. So I'm happy to receive donations toward my GoFundMe campaign. I guess that'll only be running for another week and a half. So.
Maybe we can just sit with what we've received from you so far for a few minutes, and then after we come back into the Zoom, maybe first you come with some things that bubbled up in your consciousness, and then we'll take it from there. We'll see whatever happens with the four of us. Is that okay?
Yeah. Sounds nice. Will we leave the Zoom room?
No, just I'm going to close my eyes. Everybody does it the way they want to do it.
Cool. Thank you.
Hey, Rob, I'd like to ask one question.
Okay.
My question is, and this, my role here is to tune into the heart, right? So in a previous conversation with Naomi, she mentioned that a lot of what she does, it comes from this like vision, this like experience. And I'm just wondering if if Naomi, if you want to share any of that. It's just you could not want to, it's totally okay. But if it feels alive, if it feels like something, I'm just giving you that invitation.
Thank you, Heart Flow Rick.
You're welcome.
I find vision a very tricky word. It can speak to intentions, things that we like to see and create with our lives, like an organization's vision. It can also speak to the images that come to our mind in altered states of consciousness where we're not switched on and occupied in our surroundings very busily, but bringing our focus into a theta state or a different state. And I've had a little bit of both. So when I heard you ask your question, I thought perhaps to share a vision that I had in the bath nearly a year ago. I was in a relaxed state and the water started to speak to me and it was rising and whirlpools were accelerating and I realized I was in this ocean and there was debris. There were people scattered everywhere crying out for help because they were sinking in this ocean, and I had a rope that tied itself around me. So I thought, okay, I can throw this to others. And I threw it to them and they tied it around themselves and threw it to somebody else, and the vision zoomed out in this blue mass of mess. And I saw that there was a web, there was this infinite rope that could connect us with one another. And the water spoke and said, there is an abundance of information. Information is necessary, but we can get lost in it. It can separate us from one another. It can drown us. If you want more information, be cautious who you connect with and how you connect with them. So it spoke to me of the real dangers of natural disasters and the possibility of designing communication channels in the online space that were very intentional, that cut through all of the noise of scrolling on automatic feeds. And it also really planted in me a concern that I could lose everything, that I could be living in a country where very few of my close friends are living. And if I lost access to the internet or lost their number or deleted my Facebook, that I could really lose them, and how precious these people were to me in my life.
Well, that's wonderful. Great. Thank you, Rick. Wonderful.
I'm glad to hear that. It's nice.
Such an experience makes it very real. And yet I try not to stay motivated by fear. Something is bubbling up on the topic of fear and love. And I find it all the more important these days to talk very directly about this aspect.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the delightful reliever of the human experience known as death. My relationship with death has allowed me to take risks because I had a sense that I would die young in my life and that I didn't have time to spare. I had to just dive in and use the days that I had. And I've been very careless with myself because I can make peace with the idea that at some point an accident happens and I'm wiped off the face of the earth. And I practice non-attachment. I don't mind when my time comes, but I fear that others will be sad. The grief that will hit other people when I'm gone. I've had enough experiences in my life that are on the verge of mystical. You know, they've allowed me to go beyond my assumptions of the rational world. And they tend to paint a portrait that when my mission is done, I will be gone. But until then, I'm safe. I could have died many times in my life. There are a few times that I was close to it. And it's allowed me to be courageous in an almost insane way, or ignorant, I don't know, like a foolish courage. There we go. Like in the tarot, the sacred fool. This, of course, drives my parents nuts. So I've made certain choices, like not having health insurance. And when I live overseas, I know I'm constantly just on the edge of one thing happening, and it could be game over, or I could just get a really big hospital bill because the pain is, it's not just life or death, it's also all the pain in the middle. And I wonder how, if the systems we depend on for well-being, I know in America right now, I think there's already a kind of health apocalypse situation. Like how can we attend to the pain and the accidents that happen? Because as a young person, it's very easy to wipe this aside, right? But I want to leave a message that says, I'm okay with whatever happens to me. I'm at peace. I will take the lesson that comes when I'm hurt. I welcome it. And I really want to share that choice because it has allowed me to be so much more alive. I'm not afraid of leaving behind my yesterday. I'm very satisfied with it. But so long as I'm here, I can just keep giving. And it's confronting that aspect of myself. And in my life story, I've experienced depression and not wanting to be alive, but being able to fill my life with a kind of meaning allows me to see the bright side of civilizational collapse. That's extreme silver lining. It's like, okay, the systems that we depend on might be going away, might happen suddenly. However, it's going to be really fun, exciting challenge for creative minds and curious minds to see how we adapt, to create something new. And I love creation. And so I'm fine with destruction.
Yes.
Maybe that's what Joanna Macy was kind of getting at, about transforming our grief into space for joy, for love.
Yes.
What's the worst that can happen? It's one of my favorite questions.
Yeah.
I'm curious if there's any kind of giving towards the Now What community that would feel alive loving, joyful, nourishing for you to offer? Is there anything you want to speak of in that way? Your gifts. What does that look like or feel like?
I really enjoy being able to reach across to others through poetry. I've been writing poems since I was 6 years old, more so now, because some things, for me, it takes words to transcend words. That's how my creative muse operates. So I would love to share poetry with others. And a gift of giving to myself, knowing that who I am when you are in my presence depends on how I treat myself. And so committing to being available to others means also showing up in a very grounded place, that I might be a more
Sorry, I didn't get that word.
mirror.
Oh, mirror.
I try to keep myself clear of these blocks and illusions that only distort and increase the separation between myself and others. And so by doing the practice on myself of clearing up, I feel that it is a gift to my community. I will give the gift of being very clear about my boundaries and encouraging others to do so, even if they think it might hurt someone else. It's okay. I trust. Not naively, I think. Not naively. Everyone thinks that they're not naive. But I'm very willing to find out how different they are from me.
Wow, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing all these deep things. I think trust in a sense is also a gift. Giving us trust to show yourself that way. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Ben, would you like to share what's in your mind about our interview here?
Yeah, well, I mean, part of the design is we have a conversation now, so we could do a round, but it could be more fluid too. It's interesting. I've noticed the different preferences people have for styles of conversation have been up in Now What, and the people who want a talking stick or object and everyone takes a turn, and the people who want a place where you can interrupt and play and relax, and where my tendencies lie and when I like one or the other. I'm feeling like I want the more conversational, playful thing now, but we could do a round maybe, and then that, I don't know. I've been typing fast and badly, so I'm looking at massive amounts of autocorrect red underlines that I have to go back to. There are transcription services. I can just send it off to them. But then I thought, no, there's some kind of a spiritual practice in actually listening and writing the words, and not having it be an exact transcript, but pretty close, sort of taking the essence and maybe transmuting it. I don't know. Anyway, there was so much that was so rich in what you said.
Sure.
Just pour it out of you, quite remarkably. Except knowing you as I know you, I'm not at all surprised.
I'm really just expressing the last couple of days of my existence. I mean, these things have been very active for me recently, so I guess it's a good day for an interview.
Yeah. Well, you spoke a lot about your whole life too, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, I was talking about them in the last couple of days. I want to share an insight that just popped up as I was listening to Ben. I didn't even mention the word play, or maybe in the sense of music, but playfulness.
Mm-hmm.
Because as I listened to you, Ben, I thought about something that I came up with this morning as a process design and collaboration incubator. And I realized, oh, I so love inventing playful models. How do we negotiate these paradoxes? You know, when a group wants seemingly different things and say, this is safe for me and this is safe for me, how do you find compromise without reducing everyone's needs and just like getting a monoculture center, one size fits all? One of my favorite metaphors is the wedding DJ who caters for everybody, and therefore no one wants no one's type of music, you know. So it's just flat.
Yeah.
And I was thinking of Alana Irving's full circle leadership model, which is also in Dragon Dreaming. You can do this between the boundaries. So I find if you get two opposing forces, then another two opposing forces, and then everyone gets to rank their needs along this scale, you can get a good map of we're more on this side right now. And that's just what it is. It creates a domain and a shape that influences, like, is this thing going a little that way or a little this way? And that reminded me, I love to play. I love to come up with possible things to try. Things to try that might make it a little bit easier to not get along 100% perfectly all the time.
Rick, do you have things that come up in bubble up?
Yeah. In my mind, some of the stuff that Naomi is speaking of, I would like to be able to. I've been working with forms and like interface design, you know, and I would like it to be that you can say what kinds of play you like or what kinds of connection you like, and actually be connected to someone, you know, or a group of people. To have those options, I feel that's very juicy and would be very alive, to be able to at any point go to a certain, whether it's a website or a chart or whatever, you fill out what you're feeling in that moment, what would be exciting, and if there's enough people, you know, a network, then there's probably going to be someone or a group of people who probably want to do that, you know, and that would be real nourishing. So that comes to mind for me as you're speaking.
We did a little bit of that this morning. You know, Uri Noy Mayer who's in Italy wanted to do a poetry play, and so we put it on the calendar, and a few people showed up, and I was thinking how great it would be to do that with you, Naomi, given your love of poetry. So I think we prototyped something we're going to do again, and hopefully we can find a time that will work for you.
Awesome. Yeah, I would love something like that. If there are enough people that you're likely to get someone, you know, mixed and going very niche. Like, I want to fuse poetry with existentialism and meet in that center where it's so uncommon to find someone else at that intersection at the time that you are. It's maybe the unlikeliness of it that makes it really fun.
Is that was just an example you tossed out, or is that one you want, mixing poetry?
It's something that I'm hoping to do while I'm in Berlin. I have a friend from Stockholm who came with me to Berlin because we had been talking about her dream of holding space for artists to collaborate on a piece of art, basically painting art. And I said, oh, I've been wanting to publish all my existential poems and get some art to go alongside it in the book. And why don't we do this process together where I read a poem and then people collaborate on drawings around that poem and we explore it in that way, and then we have a DJ come in and we dance in the middle and then get back to it. So I like the idea of saying, hey, we want to bring these people together in Berlin. We don't know where to go. We don't know the artists, so we're here.
Sounds lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would be really wonderful to publish that book at some point. My thinking is that if I have a published book and many copies of it, everywhere I go, I can give a gift to someone. I love to have some resource at the ready, like, oh, you just did something lovely for me. Let me give you a piece of myself that you can keep and cherish forever. And because I don't have money, I run into this, what am I going to get for someone? And I'll end up cooking a meal or something. There's ways to represent it, but I like something that lasts.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
How was this for you, Rob, as the interviewer, and what are you taking away from our time together?
It is wonderful to. I was really looking forward to hearing from Naomi, to understand more about her universe. I know that somehow we're connected. I also know that she is, let's say, experimenting with forms and ways of how things will emerge, which is sort of beyond me. But that doesn't mean that I won't try to tag along and take my time to try to understand what her role is and what our connection is. So I was very happy to. I'm very happy to be part of this. Yes, by the way, I am, because we are here with the four. I mean, I feel very connected with both you and with Rick at the same time, because it's somehow it's a dynamic of the four of us. And of course, this interdependence, which we're all experimenting with, is so crucial to the transition.
It felt really nice to hear your feedback, your response to that. It reminded me of what I had said. It was hard to listen to myself, but I heard it echoed in you. There's crossing over of complex global things, but very practical restoration and regenerative agriculture and the digital channels. How do these fit together?
Yes.
I think
how was it? Sorry, no, go ahead.
I was going to bring a metaphor and say, I think I've been lying in the ocean on my surfboard for a while because a seagull told me a wave was coming, and other people are still trying to catch the last wave and kind of missing it. And then I'm just, come on, guys, come on, come on, come on. But I'm not the wave. So when you say, I'll try to keep up and tag along with it, it's like, no, you're tagging along with the wave. But I feel that we're at least here waiting for it together, and
Yes.
Get yourself on your surfboard, stay in a calm yet attentive state. It'll come.
I like that. That speaks to me in this moment of now what? And I feel like the wave I imagine I'm still kind of waiting for. There's been a gentle swell in this first week and a half, but I imagine something with more energy and force. And I look at the network map and I see something possible there building, and I don't know. I know I can't force it. Working harder is not the answer. And there's so much that's happening. I mean, the other thing I just keep getting over and over again is it's these levels of connection. This is the DNA. It's the mycelial under the ground, 1, 2, 3, 4 people, and that's where I find joy and value, and I keep finding opportunities for that, and trusting that it's a pattern that I'm simply modeling, and others are modeling with me, that will become self-propagating. But it's antithetical to that pattern to sort of come down from above and broadcast and say, okay, everybody, now we're going to all do this.
No.
I mean, I'm trained to do it. We're all a lot of us are. And it's just so interesting to see, how many times have hundreds of people said they're interested in an event on Facebook, right? And then one person shows up. We heard a story from Joy Foley about that yesterday.
When I was packing up to leave Stockholm, I found kind of all the business cards I had collected at Climate Change and Consciousness 19. And I found a slip of paper because I had tried a weaving game to put it up there. Okay, try to weave connections between these things. And one of the notes that got put up was this beautiful sentence of, oh, this is my life work right here. Someone captured very well into a sentence. And I had taken it and kept it, thinking, oh, I'll follow up with them at some point. And I noticed the name on that paper was Joy Foley. And I was, oh, she's part of Now What? Give this chance.
Yeah, we've got 2 out of the 3 regular times work for her in Australia. The 7 a.m., 7 p.m. times for me. And she really wants people to come there, And so maybe if we can help you get to New Zealand, you could also get over to her forest.
Yes.
She is amazing.
Let's do that. I don't know what I'll do when I'm on that side of the world. Spend Christmas with my family, not come back to Stockholm till the snow is melted. That's all I know.
I have another call I need to jump to.
Okay.
The TRCC deep dive round 1. So
yes.
I'm going to rotate over to that.
Okay. Will I see one or 2 or 3 of you later on in the Amazon call? Or?
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I don't know if I even got that. So Nick, email me another notice or something. I don't see it on my calendar. I don't think.
You didn't get it. You didn't get an invitation?
Nope. Well, if I did, I just didn't notice it in all the flood of other things.
That's possible.
Yeah.
Shall I send you an invitation and you see if you can get it in your incredibly busy schedule?
Yeah. Well, I'll have time after this call, so somewhere.
I'll just mail you the stuff. It's at 1800 UTC.
Okay. Yeah.
That's 2 hours from now. Okay.
Okay.
Rick, you're invited too, of course. I already told you.
Stay here. You don't have to leave just because I'm signing off.
Okay, you're leaving. Okay.
I'll leave the meeting open.